Hello, this is Nikki in Niagara coming to you from Niagara Falls, Canada. And today we're going to look at my April 2022 book haul. These are all the reading books that I've hauled. So first of all, like usual, I'm going to start with the Abominable Book Club books. And these are the three right here. So I will show you what they are. So first of all was a new release, 2022 anthology. It's the Dead Seas series. This is volume 1 and it's Terror in the Trench, an anthology of aquatic horror edited by J. Alexander. Now the proceeds from this series of books is going to, let's see, where does it say? The Shark Trust. So 100% of the sales proceeds are going to the Shark Fund. So I've already read this, and it's a bunch of, 15 short stories that all are horror, which take place in the ocean, or near, well, no, all are in or on, let's say, the ocean. I won't tell you what I thought of it. I will do that. You'll have to see my reading wrap-up to get the deets on that one. So next one I'm really thrilled with, and this is a new release, and it also has a signed book plate to go in the book, which I think I'll just put in there right now. So this is obviously a first edition of the British book, and I'm really glad I got the British edition because I like it a lot more than the North American edition. And there we go. Very nice. So this is Sundial, and it is published by, I don't know what that is. It is published by Viper Books. And let's take a read at what it is about. The tag is, "You can't escape the desert, you can't escape the sundial." Or you can't escape Sundial, with a capital S. Rob fears for his daughters, for Callie, who collects tiny bones and whispers to imaginary friends. For Annie, because she fears what Callie might do to her. Rob sees a darkness in Callie, one that reminds her of the family she left behind. She decides to take Callie back to her childhood home, to Sundial, deep in the Mojave Desert, and there she will have to make a terrible choice. Callie is afraid of her mother. Rob has begun to look at her strangely, to tell her secrets about her past that both disturb and excite her, and Callie is beginning to wonder if only one of them will leave Sundial alive. Ooh, that sounds good. And a really nice hardcover, cloth-bound book. And then we get our used book, and I got The Many by Will Menmuir. And this is an ex-library copy, but it's in really nice condition. It's got a little plastic cover over it and everything. So this, I have not heard of this author before, and it's a short little guy. I put the bookmark that we get in here. The bookmark has a, I forget what they're called, but they're short little horror stories. Like, I think they're supposed to be so many words. I'll put that back in there. Let's read what this one is about. On the surface, his move to the isolated village on the coast makes perfect sense, but the experience is an increasingly unsettling one for Timothy Buchanan. A dead man no one will discuss, wasted fish hauled from a contaminated sea, the dream of faceless men. Questions that lead to further questions. What truth are the villagers withholding? What fuels their animosity towards him? And what pushes Timothy to dig deeper? Now, this sounds really good. I like books that are about a person moving to a small, isolated village, and everybody there is all secretive and they don't like them and all that sort of thing. Okay, so on to other books. I have The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein. I like retellings of, I'm just going to keep this here. No, let's get this. This here, and then we shouldn't have any blurring. I like books that are retellings of classic books that I've read or I want to read. So this is by Kirsten White, and she has a new book coming out pretty soon, which I can't wait to get. So this is Dark and Chilling. Elizabeth Lavenza hasn't had a proper meal in weeks. Her thin arms are covered with bruises from her caregiver, and she is on the verge of being thrown into the streets until she is brought to the home of Victor Frankenstein, an unsmiling, solitary boy who has everything except a friend. Victor is her escape from misery. Elizabeth does everything she can to make herself indispensable, and it works. She's taken in by the Frankenstein family and rewarded with a warm bed, delicious food, and dresses of the finest silk. Soon she and Victor are inseparable. But her new life comes at a price. As the years pass, Elizabeth's survival depends on managing Victor's dangerous temper and indulging his every whim, no matter how depraved. Behind her blue eyes and sweet smile lies the calculating heart of a girl determined to stay alive no matter what the cost, as the world she knows is consumed by darkness. Ooh. So that sounds like it stays fairly close to the plot line for a good bit of the book. So, or at least until they're grown up. Just going to take a sip of my drink here. I think I say this every time, but I have dry mouth syndrome, and I need to take drinks quite often to moisten my mouth. Excuse me. So this is the Ambergris Trilogy all in one book. I've read this and just absolutely adored it, and I wanted to have I don't have copies of it. I unfortunately gave those books away, but I wanted to have another copy of them because I do intend on rereading them, and I'd like to be able to annotate my new edition. So this contains City of Saints and Madmen, Shriek and Afterward, and Finch by Jeff Vandermeer. Then I picked this one up at Book Outlet. I have a book by Brom, which I just absolutely love. It is the, what is it called? It's the Peter Pan one. So I saw this at Book Outlet and just absolutely had to get it because his books go out of print pretty quickly. So this is Slew Foot, A Tale of Bewitchery. And it is a gorgeous hardcover edition. It's not cloth, though. And it's illustrated by the artist, which is absolutely gorgeous illustrations. Let's find a full plate one. Ah, here we are. Let's look at that. Isn't that stunning? Well, these are all together. Oh, there's more there, but yeah, it looks like all the illustrations are together in this one. That's different. Okay, so let's read what this is about. Connecticut, 1666. An ancient spirit awakens in a dark wood. The wild folk call him Father, Slayer, Protector. The colonists call him Slew Foot, Demon, Devil. To Abatha, a recently widowed outcast, alone and vulnerable in her pious village, he is the only one she can turn to for help. Together they ignite a battle between pagan and Puritan, one that threatens to destroy the entire village, leaving nothing but ashes and bloodshed in its wake. So it says it has more than 24 of Brahms' haunting paintings. So I guess that's including the chapter headers. Because it looks like every chapter starts with a illustration, but is it the same? Come on, where's the other chapter? Oh no, they're different. And this has nice big words. It's also a oversized book, so very nice just for the book itself. Now, when I heard about this book, I just absolutely had to get it. 150 Exquisite Horror Books. Essential Guide to the Best 150 Books of Contemporary Horror Fiction. Edited by Bram Stoker Award winner Alessandro Manzetti. So, what we get in here are okay, so yes, this is how it goes. Is we have an author, a famous author. This one is Steve Rasnick-Tem, and then he lists his 10 favorite horror books, and these books go from 86 to 20. But I don't know if those are the books that are in here or not. Interesting. John Skip, never heard of him. Never heard of him. Oh, no, never heard of him. Okay, a lot of people I haven't heard of. I know Ramsey Campbell, there we go. And where does it say who else is in here? Joe Lansdale, Grady Hendrix, Ellen Datlow. And so on. So yeah, really looking forward to browse through that. Next I have another book by Taryn Fisher. I read her first book, I don't know if it's her first book, it was my first book by her, The Wives, and I just absolutely loved it. So I picked this up at a thrift store, and when I saw it, I just had to get it. A Lifetime of Deadly Secrets All Under One Roof, The Wrong Family. Have you ever been wrong about someone? Juno was wrong about Winnie Crouch. Before moving in with the Crouch family, Juno thought Winnie and her husband Nigel had the perfect marriage, the perfect son, the perfect life. Only now that she's living in their beautiful house, she sees the cracks in the crumbling facade are too deep to ignore. Still, she isn't one to judge. After her grim diagnosis, the retired therapist simply wants a place to live out the rest of her days in peace. But that peace is shattered the day Juno overhears a chilling conversation between Winnie and Nigel. She shouldn't get involved. She really shouldn't. But this could be her chance to make a few things right. Because if you thought Juno doesn't have a secret of her own, then you were wrong about her, too. Ooh, that gives me the shivers. This sounds really good. Now, surprisingly, I have never read a book by Harlan Coben. So when I saw this at the thrift store, I thought, let's give them a try. So I hope this is a good one. No Second Chance. How far will a father go to save his only child? Shot twice by an unseen assailant, Dr. Mark Seidman lies in a hospital bed. His wife has been killed. His 6-month-old daughter Tara has vanished, but then a ransom note arrives, giving him one chance to save her. Forbidden to talk to the police or the FBI, Mark is helpless as the authorities home in on a new suspect, him. And he doesn't know who he can trust his deadly secrets about his wife, about an old love he's never forgotten, and about his own past surface. Torn between agony and hope, Mark finds himself clinging to one unwavering vow, to bring Tara home at any cost. So that sounds good. I like stories of kidnappings. This is a new release in 2022. The Glamour by Christopher Priest. I believe this is. Yes, it's a reprint of a 1984 book. A compelling and haunting novel. I don't know. Oh yeah, that looks so much better on camera than looking at it. You can't quite see into the face. Richard Gray wakes up in a hospital with amnesia after a terrorist bombing. His memories gradually start to return, but what he remembers doesn't always seem to coincide with what really happened. And then there is Susan Cooley, an enigmatic young woman whom Richard does not remember, but claims to have been his lover. With her help, Richard will discover the strange and terrible world of the Glamour, and a remarkable power both of them possess. So now this should be pretty good at it being a 1980s, they call it a psychological suspense or psychological horror. This should be pretty good. Remind me of the books I used to read when I was a teenager. All right, so now this is an exciting one here to get. This is a new book, 2022. Published by, let's see on the first pages here, Tom Doherty. So this is, oh, what did that book used to be called? Or no, I can't remember. There was a anthology written in the 80s, which I used to have, and I've read. And this is an homage to it. I can't remember the name of it right now. But this is called Dark Stars, New Tales of Darkest Horror. It's edited by John F.D. Taff. It's got a foreword by Josh Mallerman and an afterword by Ramsey Campbell. So these are horror short stories by a lot of classic authors, I believe. We've got Caroline Kepnes, Ramsey Campbell, Stephen Graham Jones, Gemma Files, and others. So looking forward to that. Then I picked this up at a thrift shop, and it's so funny because somehow I was browsing on Amazon and I got myself to Edward Rutherford, and I remembered reading his books when I was a teenager or early 20s, and I read most of them, but not all of them, and I was thinking, you know, it would be so much fun to read one of his books again. And at the same time, I've been thinking of that I would like to read some Irish history. And so along comes this book, which is part one of the Dublin saga, The Princes of Ireland. So this is a history of Ireland from the Celtic roots up to Henry II, I think, medieval Ireland. So he writes stories, books that take place in one setting, and then it goes from the beginning of time up to whatever the current time that the books are written in, and I believe these were written in the 80s, or maybe this one might have been the 90s. Let's see, this was written, oh, this is a new one. Newish, that's why I hadn't heard of it. So this is copyright 2004. Okay. So this is set in Ireland, and this is the first book in the series. Oh, I'm not going to read the back because it's basically just what I said. Then Eric LaRocca has a new book out, You've Lost a Lot of Blood. Now, he writes extreme horror and his last book was, if I can remember the name of it, what was the last book he wrote? Oh, Come for the Riverman? Is that the right one that I'm thinking of? Or We've Got a Lot to Talk About? I can't remember what his other book was, but I loved it. So this is You've Lost a Lot of Blood. Each precious thing I show you in this book is a holy relic from the night we both perished, the night when I combed you from my hair and watered the moon with your blood. You've lost a lot of blood. And this is written in kind of an interesting way because you've got your chapters, but then you've got these pictures and a poem, and this is what is this? A transcript from a cell phone, and all sorts of interesting things in there. And I picked this one up from Book Depository because I've been wanting to read some of the Fear Street books. I never did read those. My son was of the age when the original Goosebumps came out, and so I've read a lot of those. But he didn't grow into being interested in the Fear Street books, so I never did read those. So this is called Betrayal, and it is a bind-up of an omnibus of 3 books: The Betrayal, The Secret, The Burning. And this, I believe, tells the story of Fear Street, how it became such. Fear Street is cursed. It's been that way for hundreds of years. Unspeakable horrors haunt those who've walked on its terrifying path. And it all started with one family, the Fears. Go back to how it all began and discover the dark family secrets buried underneath years of terror. Learn who sentenced an innocent woman to burn at the stake. Why the Fear Mansion caught on fire. How forbidden love, a bloody feud, and a dark magic unleashed the curse that has lasted for far too long. And how Fear Street became the evil place it is today. So this should be a really good introduction to Fear Street for me. Next, I have a Clive Barker book that I've been looking for. I read this one when I was young, and it's always kind of stayed in my head that it just absolutely affected me when I read it, but I can't remember anything about it. It's The Great and Secret Show, and I do believe that it has a sequel to it, if I'm correct. So this is a biggie, and I've been hoping it would turn up on Book Outlet, and it did. So let's see, does it say anything about it? Here we go. In the little town of Palamo Grove, 2 great armies are amassing, forces shaped from the hearts and souls of America. In this New York Times bestseller, Barker unveils one of the most ambitious, imaginative landscapes in modern fiction, creating a new vocabulary for the age-old battle between good and evil, carrying its readers from the familiar to the fantastic, from the first stirring of the consciousness to a vision of the end of the world. The Great and Secret Show is a breathtaking journey in the company of a master storyteller. So it doesn't really tell us what it's about, except that it starts with some sort of being's consciousness and it ends with a end of the world scenario. So yeah, that's all we get to know. Interesting. Okay, now next we have a book that is for one of the book clubs that I belong to, and I've been asked about which book clubs I belong to, so this is a new one. It's the first time I'm reading for it, but it gives a book out every other month, and I thought I should be able to squeeze it in. So it's called the, I believe, #Moody Readers Book Club, and so they put out a vote, and you vote on the book that you're in the mood for, and then that ends up being the book that we read over 2 months. So this is Unsettled Ground by Claire Fuller, and we've got a blurb from Lauren Groff. Twins Jeannie and Julius have always been different from other people, and I just absolutely love books about twins. I've been reading a lot of them lately. At 51 years old, they still live with their mother, Dot, in rural isolation in the English countryside. But when Dot dies unexpectedly, threats start raining down, putting everything they thought they knew about their lives at stake. In Unsettled Ground, award-winning author Charlie Fuller tells a heart-stopping tale from the fringes of society, of sacrifice and hope, of betrayal and resilience, of love and survival. So they call this a psychological book, so that gives us an idea. And I'm excited to read this because it's about characters my age. So that will be interesting. And then the next book, oh, and you know what? I'm just going to be back in 1 second because I forgot a book. Okay, back. So this next one is for the hashtag Literally Dead book club. And this one is hosted by Kayla from Lala and Books. And so we're going to be reading Confessions by Kanae Minato. Something like that. So I had this on my wish list and I've been wanting to read it, so I was happy to hear that it came up. So this is Japanese, kind of a psychological, possibly horror. Yeah, they're kind of calling it unconventional, like Lord of the Flies, uncanny, haunting. Those are the kind of words we get for it. After calling off her engagement in the wake of a tragic revelation, Yoko Moriguchi had nothing to live for except her only child, 4-year-old Manami. Now, following an accident on the grounds of the middle school where she teaches, Yuko has given up and tendered her resignation. But first, she has one last lecture to deliver. She tells a story that upends everything her students ever thought they knew about 2 of their peers, and sets in motion a maniacal plot for revenge. Narrated in alternating voices with twists you'll never see coming, Confessions explores the limits of punishment, despair, and tragic love, culminating in a harrowing confrontation between teacher and student that will place the occupants of an entire school in danger. You'll never look at a classroom the same way. I just absolutely love Japanese fiction, whether it's horror or not. This also is for a book club, and I'm currently reading it. I've gotten quite a chunk on it, and I just started it last night, so this will be a quick one. I hate it when you get these paperbacks that curl. They drive me nuts. So this is called Unmasked, My Life Solving Cold Cases, Paul Holes. So I'm not going to read the back. This is about Paul Holes. He is an ex-detective who worked on cold cases and active cases, and this is, well, he ended up becoming a cold case investigator. He worked on, specialized in cold case and serial predator crimes, lending his expertise to notable cases, including the murder of Lacey Peterson and the kidnapping of J.C. Duggard. Most prominently, Paul's career culminated with his identification of the Golden State Killer, the most notorious and cunning serial predator in U.S. history. So this is really good so far. So it's a memoir of his career, and concentrates on the golden, I can't remember if it's State or Gate. Where does it say? Golden State Killer. I was going to call it the Golden Gate Killer for a minute there. And this one is for one of the book clubs too. It's not coming up for a while, but I think, I can't remember. Oh yeah, for the, this is for the hashtag True Crime book club, which the last one was as well. They're both hashtag True Crime Book Club. And in the summer, I think July and August, we're gonna have 2 books. You can read both of them or choose which one. So this is one of the summer books, and I'm a big fan of Lizzie Borden books. I've read a lot of them, and for a brand new one, because this is a 2022 release, I believe, for a modern book to come out is, oh no, it's not, it's 2019. But it's fairly new. I haven't read anything that has information this new. So basically that's what it's about. But it centers on the trial, and it also includes based on transcripts of the Borden legal proceedings, contemporary newspaper articles, previously withheld lawyers' journals, unpublished local reports, and recently unearthed letters from Lizzie herself. So there's a lot of new information in this book, which will be really interesting to read. This is a book I've been meaning to read for a long time, so I picked it up at a thrift store, Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. This is a dystopia, I guess, is what you would call it. I'm sure everybody knows about this, but just in case you don't, I'll read the back of it. An audacious, darkly glittering novel about art, fame, and ambition set in the eerie days of civilization's collapse. One snowy night, Arthur Leander, a famous Hollywood actor, dies on stage during a production of King Lear. Hours later, the world as we know it begins to dissolve. Moving back and forth in time from Arthur's early days as a film star to 20 years in the future when a theater troupe known as the Traveling Symphony roams the wasteland of what remains. This suspenseful elegiac, that's a new word for me, spellbinding novel charts the strange twists of fate that connect 5 people. Arthur, the man who tried to save him, Arthur's first wife, his oldest friend, and a young actress with the Traveling Symphony caught in the crosshairs of a dangerous, self-proclaimed prophet. So yes, definitely looking forward to that. At the thrift store, I also picked up a Dean Koontz that I hadn't read. It's actually hard for me to remember which of his books I've read and which I haven't. His books all kind of like run together after you've read a lot of them. So this is False Memory. Doesn't say much, but it sounds very good. It's a fear more paralyzing than falling, more terrifying than absolute darkness, more horrifying than anything you can imagine. It's the one fear you cannot escape, no matter where you run, no matter where you hide. It's the fear of yourself. It's real, it can happen to you, and facing it can be deadly. Ooh, that sounds good. And when was this book written? Definitely an old one. It's got a lot of yellowing going on. Come on, turn the page. Oh. Alright, so it is 2000. So about 22 years old. And I picked this one up because it has one of these die-cut covers. And this is V.C. Andrews' Darkest Hour. This is the last book in the Dawn series. So, yeah, this is the reason I got it, is because it has this. It's got gold foiling on the cover. It's got the die-cut opening. And this is the first original in 1993. So, almost an 80s or horror book or gothic book. Then I picked this book up because I definitely wanted to read this case. It's The Family Next Door by John Glatt, and it's the heartbreaking imprisonment of the 13 Turpin siblings and their extraordinary rescue. So just in case you don't know this story, I'll read you the back. It took place like not that long ago, 2018, so fairly recent. 18, 19, 20, 20. It was 5 years ago. So I have to count on my fingers. 13 siblings were held captive in their own home and lived to tell their story. On January 14, 2018, a 17-year-old girl climbed out of the window of her Paris, California home and dialed 911 on a borrowed cell phone. Struggling to stay calm, she told the operator that she and her 12 siblings, ranging in age from 2 to 29, were being abused by their parents. When the dispatcher asked for her address, the girl hesitated. "I've never been out," she stammered. She wasn't even sure how to spell her own last name. Louise and David Turpin presented themselves as loving, faithful parents. On social media, they shared snapshots of family outings and vacations, often with their children in matching outfits. But what police discovered when they entered the Turpin home would eclipse the most shocking child abuse cases in history. For years, Louise and David had kept their children in increasing isolation, trapping them in a sinister world of torture, fear, and near starvation. This is the definitive, devastating, and unforgettable account of the Turpins, a family whose dark secrets would shock and captivate the world. So yeah, I'm definitely interested in reading about this horrendous case. And this is another book that we're going to be reading in the summer for the hashtag True Crime Book Club. Just going to take a sip of my drink. Boys Enter the House, The Victims of John Wayne Gacy and the Lives They Left Behind by David Nelson. And I don't think there's anything else necessary to read about what this book is about, because it's simply about the victims of John Wayne Gacy. And I'm sure they'll go through the Gacy story as we come to the things. I'm hoping it's told chronologically by when the boys were killed. And to me, that seems like it'd be a really good way to tell the story, but I haven't read anything of it yet, so I don't know. Is there pictures? Would be nice to have a picture of the boys. Nope. No pictures. And another one of the summer books that we're reading for the hashtag True Crime Book Club. This is Scoundrel, How a Convicted Murderer Persuaded the Women Who Loved Him, the Conservative Establishment, and the Courts to Set Him Free, by Sarah Weinman. Now, reason I got this was, at first I thought it was going to be kind of political, and I wasn't too sure I wanted to read it, but I went and had a look at it, and it's not really that political. And it's written by Sarah Weinman, who wrote The Real Lolita, which I read and was just that's absolutely fascinating story, both of a true crime book and of a literary analysis of the book Lolita, which I read specifically too, before I read The Real Lolita. So I'll just read the first two paragraphs here. In the 1960s, Edgar Smith, while on New Jersey's death row for the murder of teenager Victoria Zelinsky, struck up a correspondence with William F. Buckley, Jr., the founder of National Review. Buckley, who refused to believe that a man who supported the conservative movement could have committed such a heinous crime, began to advocate not only for Smith's life to be spared, but also for his sentence to be overturned. So begins a bizarre and tragic tale. Sarah Weinman's Scoundrel leads us through the twists of fate and fortune that brought Smith to freedom, book deals, fame, and eventually to attempting murder again. In Smith, Weinman has uncovered a psychopath who maneuvered his way into public acclaim and acceptance before crashing down to earth once again. So yes, very interesting, and I haven't heard of that case, so very good. Alright, then we got A Black and Endless Sky by Matthew Lyons, and this is a 2022 release by Key Lime Press. Road trips can be hell. Siblings Jonah and Nell Talbot used to be inseparable, but ever since Jonah suddenly blew town 12 years ago, they couldn't be more distant. Now, in the wake of Jonah's divorce, they embark on a cross-country road trip back to their hometown of Albuquerque, hoping to mend their broken relationship along the way. I always like books about people going back to their hometown after years and years away. But when a strange accident befalls Nell at an abandoned industrial site somewhere in the Nevada desert, she begins experiencing ghastly visions and exhibiting terrifying otherworldly symptoms. As their journey through the desolate American Southwest reveals the grotesque change happening within his sister, one thing becomes clear to Jonah: it's not only Nell in there. Pursued by a mysterious stranger who knows far more about Nell's worsening condition than they let on, the siblings race to find a way to help Nell and escape the desert before they're met with a violent, bloody end. Unspeakable horrors lurk in the desert ahead, some of them just beneath the skin. Oh, so it sounds like they're not going to make it back home. And this is a series I wanted to try out. It's called The Horror Library, and this is volume 7, which is a recent publication. It took a little while to get to me. Yeah, it's still a 22. So this is just an anthology. Let's read the little back of it to see what the horror... This describes the horror library in general, not just this book. Since 2006, the Plus Horror Library Plus, so that's what it is, series of anthologies has been internationally praised as a groundbreaking source of contemporary horror short fiction stories, relevant to the moment and stunning in impact from leading authors of the macabre and darkly imaginative. Filled with fears and fantasy, death and dark dreams, monsters and mayhem, literary vision and wonder, each volume of the Plus Horror Library Plus series is packed with heart-pounding thrills and creepy contemplations as to what truly lurks among the shadows of the worlds we live in. Shamble no longer through the banal humdrum of normalcy, but enter the horror library. So let's see if we've heard of any of these. Oh boy, there's a lot of stories in here. They must be short. Have I heard of anybody? Bentley Little. No, I haven't heard of anybody, but I'm not that well read yet on Terry Dowling, I believe I've heard of. And then there's a special at the end about guest artist Alan Kozowski. I guess he did the cover. So yeah, no, I haven't heard of any of these. The book is bigger than usual for a paperback. It's that much bigger than a trade paperback. And this, I've just found out, is published by the same people that do that. Yeah, it's it is it by, are they by Source Books? Yeah, okay, I don't need to go on about the publishers here. Okay, so then I got another book in the Horror Writers Association Presents the Haunted Library of Horror Classics. So this is the original The Mummy, A Tale of the 22nd Century by Jane Webb. These books are starting to get hard to get, so have to try and get my hands on the ones that have been published, and it took a long time for this one to come out. So here's what it's about. In the year 2126, so far enough in the future that this is still science fiction to us, and it was written in 1827, less than a decade after Frankenstein. It's the year 2126, and England is a... Oh, it says it has startlingly accurate predictions of the modern age. England is a land of tranquility and prosperity and contradictions. Though ruled exclusively by queens, women must still defer to men in matters of marriage and career. Education is universal, and technological advances abound. Robotic surgeries, oh dear. Sometimes I just lose my voice and I get kind of like a laryngitis, so I'll try to read through this and hopefully it doesn't come back again. Technological advances abound, robotic surgeries, undersea tunnels, weather-controlled devices, but the battle between science and religion rages on, as does war between England and Germany. And just imagine, this was written in 1827, so before both world wars. Edric Montague feels overshadowed by his older brother and is eager to make his own mark on the world. He travels with his mentor to Egypt, where they use a battery to reanimate the mummified body of Cheops, an ancient pharaoh. Once Cheops is brought back to life, however, he steals Edric's hot air balloon and heads for London, eager to share his insight and wisdom with humanity. Finding a society little to his liking, Cheops soon exerts his considerable powers of persuasion, bringing about political upheaval and turmoil, as well as wreaking havoc on various romantic relationships. Can England survive the mummy? It is a big book, but it's got nice big writing in it, so hopefully that'll make it easy to read. And finally, the very last thing is I bought the next 3 books in the Grimm Fairy Tales series. So I've got Volume 4, which I've already read, Volume 5, which I'm halfway through, and Volume 6, which takes us up to issue 36 of the series. And that is all. That's my complete reading book haul for April of 2022. Thank you for allowing me to share this with you, and I hope you enjoyed it and perhaps found some books that are of interest to you. So until next month, bye-bye.